Hello and welcome to the video. This is going to be part 3 of my 2024 Arnold Strongman Classic predictions, where we're going to be going over the athlete who I've predicted to come into 6th place. Now, before we get into that, I just wanted to point out that I made a couple of updates to my predictions. Just some slight alterations that slightly affect the overall points of some of the people who have already gone over. Essentially, what has changed is just the opponent's axle scores and some scores on the max deadlift. So most notably, we see Bobby Thompson scores 10 points on the max deadlift. So what this means essentially is that I had him in 3rd place, and now I believe that he actually has a likely chance of getting a 2nd place finish in this event instead. And what that does is it brings both him and Maxime to a tie on 23.5 points. I believe Maxime still wins off of countback if that's the rule that they go with, but essentially it just makes things a little bit closer there. Also, due to the half a point, due to the change of half a point in the axle, Thomas Evan loses half a point to Oscar. So now Thomas Evans and Oscar are in 10th and 11th place instead of being tied there. Not any massive changes, but just something that I felt I should point out. So moving on, getting into the athlete that we're going to be covering today, I'm just going to go ahead and reveal here some of their stats and previous performances. So, and also what I'm predicting them to score here. So we see that this is an athlete who has deadlifted over 455 kilos or 1,000 pounds in a suit, and has some pretty solid performances on similar events here at the Arnold. This is an athlete who had a pretty great year in 2021, had a bit of a hiccup in 2022, and managed to make a fantastic comeback in 2023. He is currently the 5th strongest man in the world. He scored a 4th place finish at the Shaw Classic last year, and he placed 4th place at the Rogue Invitational last year as well. So, who's this athlete other than Evan Singleton? So, that's right, I have Evan Singleton in 6th place here. So, I think the best way to go ahead and talk about that is just going event by event here, like I did in the previous videos. So, just to start off here on the deadlift, we see here that he has 5 points. So essentially, what that means is that he's going to be scoring a 7th place finish here. Now, that might seem a little bit surprising considering the fact that Evan has a, over 1,000-pound suited deadlift PR in competition. However, this is at the Arnold, they're going to be using the elephant bar deadlift, which does not allow the use of suits. It also, notably, it doesn't allow the use of figure 8 straps, which in most competitions, I've always seen Evan use figure 8 straps, which gives a bit of an advantage, adds a little bit, or I guess removes a little bit of that range of motion. It essentially makes the lift a little bit easier. So this max deadlift is going to be a lot harder than the situations where Evan pulled 1,000 pounds. Also, I believe that Evan is an athlete that gets a lot out of a suited deadlift, similar to Alexei Novikov here, which is placing only one spot above him. Now, speaking of Alexei Novikov, I do think that these two placings here, the for 5 points and 6 points, can be interchangeable between Evan and Alexei, depending on a variety of factors, depending on how the day goes for each of them. However, I am giving Alexei, again, a slight edge there over Evan, just, due to him having a bit more experience on this type of deadlift setup. And, Novikov's raw deadlift has also been coming along pretty nicely, whereas Evan has consistently shown to drop a few points when he's not allowed to suit. Now, with that being said, in his recent training, he actually has been hitting some great numbers out of a suit. He did hit 401 kilograms, which is 885 pounds in training raw. and it did move pretty nicely. He also hit, I believe it was somewhere around 350 kilos or 770 pounds for 6 reps raw, which is again a pretty decent score there. So with that being said, Evan could really easily, score 6 points here instead of five, or maybe even 7 points for, I believe, what would be a fifth place in this max deadlift. However, it also has to be considered that I am the people who are really expected to be in the top five are some pretty massive deadlifters and are also proven when it comes to their raw deadlifts. So Evan definitely has some competition to stack up to here. But again, you can never really predict these things. It all depends on how the athlete really shows up on the day. That really reminds me of when Hafthor Bjornsson, who's actually competing and making his comeback in this competition, showed up in 2018 at the Arnold, making massive improvements upon his deadlift. Uh, I believe for example, I believe in 2017, he had pulled somewhere around 440 kilograms on the elephant bar. And in 2018, just a year later, he pulled 472 kilograms, making an improvement of over 30 kilograms in just a year. So again, with this kind of thing, these athletes can really, pull out surprises. But enough said on the deadlift. Moving on to the frame carry. Now, the frame carry is an event that's going to require not only speed in moving the 400 kilogram frame, but also a great amount of grip strength. Now, in my opinion, Evan Singleton has to have one of the best grips in strongman at the moment. Um, I don't think that's anything that anybody would disagree with. So one factor with the frame carry is that, the athlete is going to want to be able to hold on to it the entire duration of the run. And I do think that Evan Singleton is not only capable of that, but also capable of moving fast with the frame. So I do think that that's a combination that's going to really score him some points here. Now, again, towards the top end of that table, specifically two athletes, I do think are going to fare a little bit better than him here. But I do see Evan potentially scoring a second place here, not just a third place. But he's definitely going to be towards that top end of the table if he does what he's capable of. So again, with the frame carry, he is expected to pull out some pretty good points here. That's going to move him up towards that top end of the leaderboard. So, pretty simple there on the frame carry. So the Denny Stones. Now, Evan is one of the few athletes here that does have experience on not only the Denny Stones, but other similar stone carries with similar shaped handles. In 2023, just this past July, at the Strongman Classic, there was a nickel stone event, and he did, as you can see down here, he did get 25.25 meters, which was a third place finish. However, that is a pretty significant distance, and the two athletes that were actually capable of beating him out there, again, also just had equally phenomenal performances. So a 25.25 meters on the nickel stones is sort of towards that top end of the table that not many athletes are going to really be able to beat. Now, if you want to talk more specifically about the Denny stones, that is the event that's actually going to be held here. Evan hasn't actually performed a Denny Stone walk. However, he has held the Denny Stone replicas for 25 seconds as a holding style event where, he just stood there and held them for 25 seconds. So now, while that isn't really towards the top end that you might expect some of the athletes here to be scoring, that definitely is going to be enough time for him to put in a significant distance, leading me to believe that he's going to be in that top three or around that sort of area. When it comes to the rest of the athletes here, I just do believe that there are two specific athletes that are going to be a bit of a challenge for anybody really to beat in this event. Two athletes again that either have a lot of experience on this type of event or just have, again, phenomenal grips. Um, But essentially, enough said there. He's definitely going to be looking to score some good points on that event if he does what he's capable of. So moving on to the Apollon's wheels. This is going to be an axle press that weighs 182 kilograms. The athletes are going to be doing this for reps. I believe they have 90 seconds or 120 seconds to perform as many reps as possible. Now, if you take a close look at this table here, you do see that we have a lot of 4.5s. Essentially, what that means is that all of these athletes are tying on this event. And to be specific, I do believe that all of these athletes here with 4.5 points on the Apollon's wheels are capable of hitting 2 reps on this event. And again, I do think that Evan is definitely capable of hitting 2 reps on that axle, so long as he doesn't get ahead of himself here. This is an event where, if you mess up the clean, you stumble a little bit, it can really throw you off and have you lose a lot of time, lose out on your rhythm, etc. So although Evan has, showed that he's able to sort of calm down from how excited he used to be, you know what I mean? It is something to look out for here with him. However, I do definitely think that he's capable of putting in a great performance here, and I do believe that 2 reps is a likely outcome for Evan Singleton here, something that he's definitely capable of hitting. And who knows, he could maybe even hit 3 reps on this event, which I think will be enough to really separate him from the rest of the pack here. I do think that 3 reps on this event is going to be a very significant performance here that's going to really put points on the table. And I do think that 4 reps is going to be enough to win this event. And as to why I think Evan can hit 2 reps, some of his previous performances, I believe it was about 5 years ago where he hit a axle clean and press PR with 185 kilograms. And the axle that they're going to be repping out here is 182 kilograms. So he has hit a higher weight than this. So he's definitely capable of 1 rep. Add 5 years of progression onto that. I do think he's capable of 2. Not to mention that in his training, he has recently hit a 177 kilogram axle, just 5 kilos lighter than competition for 2 reps. So, he's not far off the mark there. Now some people have been commenting that the axle he's using in training is, has a rotating bar, whereas the axle in the competition has no rotation to it, essentially making the clean of the axle much more difficult. So that is definitely something to look out for that might prevent him from reaching that 3rd rep. However, we'll just have to wait till that day comes to actually see what happens. So moving on to the final event, the stone medley, where the athletes are going to have to press a stone that's about 300 pounds, load another stone that I believe is around maybe 360 to 380 pounds, just a typical stone load. And then finally get to the final stone, the Oudhaugen tombstone, where they have to shoulder it as many times as possible. So this is a very interesting event that could go any which way for all of these guys, actually, due to that final tombstone being very unpredictable. So I do believe that Evan is capable of pressing the first stone and loading the second stone with no problem. Barring any mishaps or any mistakes on those first 2 stones. So then when it comes to the final stone, the Oudhaugen tombstone, it's a 186 kilogram. I believe it's 186 kilogram. It might be 192, something like that, but it's in that range. It's a very heavy stone. So when it comes to that stone, essentially what you're looking for in the athlete is a strong grip and also experience with natural stones and shouldering other heavy objects such as that. Now, when it comes to Evan, I do believe that he is actually known to be very good at shouldering pretty heavy sandbags. I think he's shouldered a sandbag of 200 kilograms or something in that range, which is heavier than the stone that we see in the competition. However, there is something to be said with having directly hands-on experience with this stone. So you can't really just correlate a 200 kilogram sandbag to sort of a 190 kilogram natural stone, In some occasions you can, however, it's not a direct correlation. So with that being said, I do think that Evan is capable of lifting that final stone. However, in my predictions, just to be sort of on the safe side, I do think that it is something that he can struggle with, and I do have him with 4 points here, just because I'm unsure if he's going to end up being able to shoulder that final stone. He also loses a bit of points here, in my opinion, because he might stumble a little bit on the stone press or the stone load, just due to the fact that he might be rushing it a little bit. Things such as that, it's just a prediction. Anything can really happen here, but overall, I do think that there's a good handful of athletes that can perform better than him here, unless he pulls out an all-star performance. So with all that, I do have him placing in sixth place with a final score of 31.5 points. A little bit farther removed from Alexei Novikov here, similarly to how Alexei is a bit removed from the bottom four. However, I do think that although he's getting 31.5 points here, he could pick up, 4 or 5 points across all these events, maybe even landing him in fifth place. However, I do think that the top four in this competition is going to be something that will be very difficult to crack unless, you are one of those top athletes that I have yet to reveal, of course. I'm sure a lot of you can imagine who those top four might be. So with that being said, that should be it for this video. So next video, we're going to be covering the fifth place placing athlete, according to my predictions. But essentially that is it for this video, and thank you very much for watching.